Free video update of what the model is saying on Bitcoin. This is a monthly chart of Bitcoin in US dollars, and basically what we have is we think this was at least a minor long-term top, but we think it's more important, mid-sized long-term top. What do I mean by that for those of you who would like to get into like cyclical analysis in relation to business cycle analysis? Basically what we're looking for is at least a 3 to 4 year cycle, okay? And you can see here's a top, here's a top, here's a top, okay? And it should come down, and by next year probably top again, okay? But it could also be a 6-year cycle. Definition is 5 to 7 years, and it would include at least 2 and maybe 3 of those 3 to 4 year cycles that sometimes can be as short as 2 years. At any rate, this was the mid-cycle level LT2, and we think, albeit it's the first opportunity, but it's the ideal opportunity for another mid-cycle top. So it means chance for a little more downside, and as it turns out, it could actually go into a mid-cycle bottom sometime this year, probably late this year, okay? I think the earliest I'm coming up with is the fall months of this year. So we could be in a bear market for Bitcoin that long. Now, when I say a bear market, it's quite possible they knock it down hard and fast, and then it just wild whipsaws, wide trading range. It doesn't have to truly be a defined, proper pattern like this. Okay? It could be wild and crazy. It suggests at the very least that the market shouldn't trade above 70,000. It shouldn't have a record high. And I realize I'm going up against some big players that are calling for 100,000 even this year. And I just think they're going to be wrong. I'm sorry. I think they're going to be wrong. Now, I also want to point out there's really no fundamental economic analysis into this, because we really don't think cryptocurrencies have anything to do with the economy and don't have their own fundamentals yet, that it's a developing market, okay? That the legitimizing of it by using as a currency just is not large enough. It doesn't fit in well enough. And it can't seem to keep its mind of what it wants to correlate with, which granted all currencies do flip around of what they're correlating with. But it seems though Bitcoin is really just a money game. It's a market of money. Money chasing money is all it really is, okay? So we have to rely more on technical, quantitative price, some qualitative price-oriented things. And then we have learned this market has developed well enough that it's showing business cycles lasting a few days to a few years. But what we don't know for this more important long-term scenario here is we don't know if we really have enough history to be correct on calling a long-term bear market. So be cautious. At any rate, we think this is going to zigzag lower over time and may yet test the low of last year, getting down in that 28,000 to 30,000 area. And for those that like to predict crashes, I wouldn't rule it out. This is important enough that it might drop to 10 or 15,000 for all I know. But we don't have that kind of information. We just know statistic-wise it can occur. But we don't know. We got to take it one step at a time here, okay? Now, what are we going to say if Bitcoin suddenly roared during the first half of this year, surged to a record high? We'd probably still try to throw some final darts, and I say darts, to call such a top, and then would be bearish for later in the year, but it would then be a brief bear market, which might make it more volatile, but at the very least it would be brief compared to what we're looking at today. So we cannot rule out even some near-term strength coming, but we don't like what we see at the moment. We think it's in a bear market. Now we're going to drill down by switching from this monthly chart of Bitcoin to a weekly chart. So on our weekly chart, the market did top out at this target level. We came up with that target level again, topped out, hit it almost exactly at the maximum and sold off. And we think we've got a long-term top in place, but at the very least we have a level 1 top that occurs a few times a year. It's the most important type of top and related bottom, and therefore related uptrend, downtrend, that we think anyone can trade. Inside the level 1, if it's going to last 2 or more months, and it can last as many as 5 months, you will see a level 2 come in at about halfway. It's the second most important kind of trend. Once you get into 2 to especially 1 month for a level 1 trend, chances are you're not going to see the level 2. Now, level 2 coincides, however, with it. So if we find a level 1 top, we also found a level 2 top. Okay? But the point is, level 2s can be by themselves along the way. Level 1 helps us timing, perhaps the high and low of the year maybe, but more importantly, to help us time these long-term trends of what time of year and what year will long-term top occur. So Bitcoin should be placed a level 1 bottom, most important kind of bottom. They ought to be anxious. They ought to be excited, happy-dappy, and buy Bitcoin, and they haven't done it. And it's supposed to rally into a level 2 top due this week and the next 2 weeks. We might be able to add another week. So this is ideally getting late, and the market's not even picking its head up. No one's buying it. Or at least a level 2 trader, and that is a group of traders, and it's actually a blend of level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, even intraday. But the point is, we simplify and just say the level 2 trader has disappeared. They're silent. They're quiet. Why? We don't know why. Hopefully you do. Maybe you can help us out. Send me an email, okay? Tweet me. But I think ultimately there's something going on here where they're concerned we're lacking demand. And I'm concerned of violating the low of 2 weeks ago at 45,544.58 is going to trigger additional selling when they'll sell down into late February and early March for a level 2 bottom. And we even have a price objective for the downside, and that may be a minimum. It could drop a lot more. It could go back to last year's low, 30,000, 28,000, something like that. All right. It may crash for all we know. Okay. But the bottom line is the bulls need to step at the plate quickly and put it up. And I'm concerned even if they snapped it up, it still may work and come down anyways, that they're just not going to rally it enough. They'd have to get this up to 60,000. And then I might say when it pulls back in level 2, it won't go below 50,000. And then it's just going higher into a level 1. And this is the time frame for a level 1 top. And we're saying it's probably going to be low priced. It's probably not going to work. And the reason is the market's in a much larger downtrend, connecting 2 level 1 downtrends, okay, when it's not even going to bottom till May. And if we can get this market below this level 1 low and keep it down for a few weeks, or it heads lower in that level 2, we'll have a rule violation that triggers another rule to say, yes, it can bounce for level 1, but it ought to be a weak, rather limited rally, because by the time it gets to level 1, it ought to be as low and ideally lower than the level 2 low. Which means, yes, we can be in that lengthy of a trend down all the way into May. Now, again, it could also be range-bound, choppy, does not work for that as well. The best thing we want to point out is if they violate this low, at least concentrate or consider, focus maybe, that yes, it can go lower into late February on into March for that level 2. And then we can reevaluate, okay? Maybe it'll bounce quite a bit and then go all the way back down. We don't really know. But we know there's setups here to be more bearish than what it's done in quite some time. I think this is supportive. This sequencing, this synchronization and timing is supportive of the idea that we could be in a developing long-term bear market in Bitcoin. The weekly indicator got extremely oversold and rebounded, but when it gets extremely oversold after a fast rally, you have to be concerned that the indicator will be wrong for a while, will not go to a lower low, however, but the market will go lower. And that might create a much better setup for a bottom, okay? So the bottom line is even the indicator isn't necessarily that bullish, even though it's oversold. It's trying to work on a buy signal here. Now, we also have level 3 pops and drops from a week-to-week kind of basis here that we also use as a timing tool to help us with these level 2, level 1s. And I will say it's due to bounce in the next week for level 3, but it hasn't done anything yet. If it takes out this week's high at 47,937.17, that opens the door for a level 3 rally, but it may just be that final blip up into a level 2 top, but it's just going to be a weak blip. It may not even go higher than the prior 2 weeks, okay? And then just right on down again. So I understand they might take out last week's low only to bounce it a little bit, kind of make us feel like we're trapped, only to go still lower anyways. I think the low of 2 weeks ago is significant. We've got to watch that and be cautious here if you're bullish. And if you're bearish, I think it can be quite supportive for you. Have no idea whether this is going to be a struggle lower, a sizable, maybe fast decline, or whether it even crashes, but we're coming up with a net bearish bias, if you will, if I can use that term. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future results. Manage your risk. Thank you.